going on, everybody? Welcome back to the Chasing Dreams podcast, episode 71 with Charlie and Justin. We are coming at you on a really early Saturday morning, earlier than we have been lately, at least. You know, we've kind of been all over the board with our recording times, and it's, I would say, the crack of dawn, but it's a couple hours before that even, which is good because I like getting up, and you and I both mentioned being tired today, so it's always nice on the days you're tired to, as long as sleep quality is okay, force yourself out of bed and try to be productive.
Do it anyways, yeah, absolutely.
I mean, there's so many days with, you know, not necessarily with work, obviously, but if there's obligations that I have before work where it's really, really tempting to sleep in, but you kind of got to force yourself to do what you don't want to do when you don't want to do it.
Right, absolutely.
I think that's part of, like, this discussion that you can have with people about what, like, motivation is. And people say, oh, my gosh, you have to be so motivated to get up to go to the gym early every morning. But I don't know. I don't look at it like that because I enjoy doing that.
Right.
Like, I want to get up. Like, I feel like motivation would be me getting up every morning to do something I didn't want to do.
Yes.
Like, that would require fortitude and discipline and all that. Whereas me getting up to go to the gym, I enjoy that. I look forward to it. So, like, after the initial, like, push literally out of bed to once my feet hit the floor, then I'm good to go because it's like, oh, I get the opportunity to go to the gym and lift.
Yeah, because it's weird. Like, some people hate going to the gym, and it's like, I don't think I've maybe in high school. But I don't think I've ever since, like, this journey started, I don't think I've ever walked into the gym and was like, man, I just don't really want to be here today. Maybe not want to lift legs today, but I don't think since it started I've had that moment where I'm like, nah, man, I don't want to do this today. But I'm going to do it, but I don't want to. You know what I mean? So, like, I get what you're saying. Like, you don't need I don't need motivation to go to the gym.
I think I've been getting pretty good over the years at identifying when that instance would be coming, whether it's, like, physical or mental. Like, the reset becomes a necessity there.
I would say, yeah, if that comes, do you just take a rest day? Like,
yeah, I do.
Unprescribed, just, you know, if I get to that point, I'm just going to take the day off.
Yeah, I never train sick or anything. To me, because, you know, I was actually on YouTube the other day watching something. I forget what it was, and a video popped up, and it was how to train and manipulate your training, like, when you're sick. Like, if you have, like, the cold or the flu or something. And they said, you know, about lowering rest period or extending rest periods and lowering your volume and intensity. All the obvious stuff, basically go to the gym but do less. Like, if I'm sick, I need to recover, and that's just hindering recovery and an increasing inflammation and increasing stress. Like, and it's not going to be productive, I don't think. So, like, I don't even bother going to the gym if I'm sick or anything like that.
I think that kind of the Rome wasn't built in a day applies there.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, if you have a week where you're, you know, like, if you had COVID or if you come down with the flu, like the actual flu, just take your time. Take your time off. Now, if you feel good enough, now I know people that got COVID this year and last year, and they cut their training off, but they still went for walks and jogged a little, stuff like that, just to keep their cardiovascular health up. And I'm guessing that was probably one of the reasons why they recovered from COVID so fast.
Yeah, I think we should probably throw the little asterisks in there that recovery-wise, you're going to be, it all depends on what your training's like.
Right.
So, like, to say don't exercise, I don't know, that might not be good advice, but I'm speaking strictly from, like, what we do.
Yeah, like,
which would probably be a little bit higher intensity than you consider, you know, quote, a normal person.
Hey, and unless you have your own gym, like, even if you're contagious sick and you go to a public gym, it's irresponsible. You know what I mean? More than it is, more than anything else, is irresponsible. Because even if you feel good enough to do the workout, like, what are you doing to everybody else? You know what I mean?
Yeah,
like,
exactly.
Like, let's be responsible too. You know?
Yeah. Yeah, there's definitely different ways to go about it, and you talk to people that are, you know, in the similar paths that we are, and they would tell you that you absolutely have to go to the gym and train if you're not feeling well. So I guess it's all contextually been individually specific on that, like, particular scenario. Like, when you say, oh, I'm sick, do you go to the gym or not? Like, it's like every answer in fitness or health or whatever, it's always for me like it depends.
Right.
Like there always needs to be a good deal of context there because like what you have, like you said, are you contagious? How long have you been sick for? What's your training like? There's so many different variables. Like that's, I mean, honestly though, like I said, that's everything in health is
right.
Depends.
Yeah, because to touch back on it one more time, like I don't think you could physically do an effective progressive overload if you're sick.
Yeah.
Like if you're compromised in any way, like you can't go to your max because you don't have that energy. So, like, is it even an effective workout? Like, even if you feel like you put an effective workout out, did you though?
Yeah. Right.
And is it worth doing the work if you're not doing it to your best?
Mm-hmm.
No.
I mean, that's kind of an analogy for everything.
Yeah.
Like my dad, I've said it before, has like this list of quotes that whether he's conscientious of it or not, he uses like repetitively. And one of the things that he would always say, and I've said it on air, it was always, if something's worth doing, it's worth doing right.
Yes.
And that's always like stuck with me because anything else then, as you become an adult, like we talk all the time about time and like time management, like that's kind of at a premium. Yeah. Like it's an invaluable commodity that you and I have, and we have the same amount of it, and how we choose to spend it dictates how much you have in a sense.
Right.
Like everybody, and I know that's a paradox, but everybody has the same amount of time, in the literal sense, but how much of it you seem to have is predicated on how well you allocate it. So like, yes. what are you doing during those hours and stuff? So as you get older and you find that you start to place a higher value on time, you get to this point, or at least I did, where it's like, okay, well, if this is worth doing, it's worth doing right. And if it's not worth doing right, or if I don't have to give 100% effort, then why would I give any effort at all and be wasting my time? Yeah. Almost, not that like you're doing 100% in the literal sense to everything that you do, because I know that that's not feasible. Right. Like when you go to work every day, you try to give 100%, but there's days where you just don't have it. Or like talking about gym days, even if you're not sick necessarily, there's days where you go to the gym and you just don't have a great workout.
Right.
Like I'd like to say that, because when people say like take us for example, when we review our training, like we do our intro for the podcast, and typically there's the, hey, how's training been this week, or how's your nutrition been this week, or whatever, being that we're a fitness based podcast,
right,
or our roots are in fitness, and we always say good, or really good, or whatever. We kind of have this scale, but it always seems to be on the positive end. Well, what people don't see, or what they may not get an understanding of, is there's bad days in there.
Right.
But we're reviewing a week at a time.
Right.
So if I have one bad training day and you ask me how training's been, I'm not going to say that it's been bad.
Yeah, 1 out of 7 is not terrible.
Yeah. So I think that everybody has those bad days, but regardless, the point I'm trying to make is you try to give 100% to everything. And if there's something that you're doing that you're not giving 100% to consistently, then I think you need to like self-analyze and say, why am I doing this?
Right.
If you're doing something repetitively and you're not giving effort to it, and there were some things in my life, like big things, that I had to cut out because it wasn't 100%, of my effort being put into it.
Right.
So once I realized that, it's like, okay, well, what can I do to get rid of it? Or perhaps in the same fashion, if you're doing something and you're trying to give 100% to everything, but you can't because there's not enough 100% to go around.
Right, exactly.
Where you're like, spreading yourself thin, which we've talked about several times for you and I both, doing different things. It's like, okay, well, we need to focus as much as we can on certain things. And you can even take that a step further and like do smaller sample size, or not necessarily sample sizes, but more specific, and look at like training.
Right.
Like you with a baby, I'm sure that you've had to scale some things and maybe either a limit. You have to make compromises is what it boils down to.
Yeah. I've definitely had to compromise the daily routine sometimes. But But it's just a matter of making it fit, you know. Like you said, it's time management and making all the necessary changes in life, basically.
Now, this is a question that you may or may not be able to answer because it's been relatively recent since your daughter's been born, and I feel like in order to truly analyze it, you'd have to go for several months. But with a new baby, there's two strategies. I think when you said the daily gets compromised from time to time, what is, in your opinion, the best way to go about it, or which way have you gone about it, where you try to keep the normal as possible, and if 1 or 2 days get messed up, that's okay because you still do your normal stuff? Or do you completely switch it around preemptively? And I think I know the answer to that because we've talked before you had your daughter about, planning schedule changes and stuff
Right.
like that.
So with her, I try to stick to the plan 100%. If I get home from work and change for the gym, like I do every day, and she is on one, if she's on the warpath and mom's kind of had it for the day, not really had it, but you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like she's been through the ringer because she's had a bad day, I will text my training partner and say, hey man, can we try 45 minutes later? I need to try to get the baby to calm down, blah, 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 whatever. And then if it gets close to that extended time frame and she's not calmed down, I might text my training partner. I've done it a couple times. Text him and say, hey man, I hate to do this, but the baby's just not cooperating tonight.
Yeah.
It is what it is. She's more important.
Yeah.
I got to make sure she's good. So I just take one of those unprescribed rest days, I guess.
And then is it hard for you, like, because that's what what I kind of alluded to earlier with saying that waking up early isn't difficult for me because I want to do what I'm doing when I get up early. So for you, likewise with your daughter, do you feel like, obviously it's less than ideal to like miss the gym, especially because you love it so much,
right?
But when you do certain things for your daughter, do you feel like it's truly a sacrifice?
No, not at all. Like how like almost all new parents, and I'm sure my time's coming. I'm only had a kid for 6 weeks.
Yeah, a honeymoon phase still.
Yeah, tomorrow's 7 weeks. She's 7 weeks old tomorrow. But most new parents in that first 3 months, from everybody that I've talked to, they're absolutely miserable, especially first thing in the morning because they've been up all night. They were up all day the day before, and they ain't getting no sleep. I don't know. I've been doing my fair share of the nights, and it doesn't bother me to like sit up all night with her, and then the alarm clock go off, and I haven't really been to bed, and get up, splash some water on my face, get my nutrition rolling, and go to work.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? Like for some reason it doesn't seem to be affecting me, and I think it's because I've been looking forward to this for so long. I'm 30 years old, and I've thought about having kids of my own since I was like legitimately like 13, 14 years old.
Yeah. Like
actually the thought of I want to be a dad. I want to have a family. So no, it doesn't like, I don't know. It doesn't feel like a job at all.
And plus with you, you're a genuinely positive person most of the time.
Try.
So you always see like the good in things. And I'm sure that transcends not only, our relationship or your relationship with people, but also like your relationship with yourself.
Yeah.
In the sense that I don't want to say convincing because it's not difficult to convince yourself of these things, but like you can tell yourself, yeah, I really wanted to go to the gym today, but I'm going to stay home and, help my wife with the baby. And that's just another opportunity for me to spend more time with my kid.
Yeah.
Or whatever.
When, especially now that the weather's getting better.
Uh-huh.
Because I did do a lot of trash talking where I said I was going to take her outside and work out with her every day from the time she comes home.
Mm-hmm.
And then I realized that that's not good for her to be out in the cold when she was an infant. So now that the weather's changing, though, I have made it a point that we're in the stroller and we're doing some walking every day as much as possible because it's so good for her to get used to that routine. And so I already had her in our running stroller. Can't run with her yet, not allowed. Doctor said she has to be 6 months old, but she had a blast.
So what is a running stroller? Does it just like give like a smoother push?
It's really lightweight. I can't remember what it's called, but it's the 3 wheels. They got bicycle tires on them, small bicycle tires, but the posture for the runner itself is nice. So you're not like bent over. You know, they're really adjustable, and she loves it. Her car seat fits right into it for now, and then she'll transition into just as a toddler being in it.
Cool.
But no, I took her for a not a long walk, but not a super short walk the other night, and she was really fussy when we left the house. By the time we got to the bottom of the road, out like a light. So I was like, I could get used to this because I enjoy going for walks, and everybody enjoys when a crying baby stops crying. So, like, we're all winning.
Yeah.
Know?
That's very cool. And plus, you know, the habits that you establish early on are going to be crucial. Something that, it's just going to be all she's ever known.
Yes.
You know, so
exactly.
Like,
that's
from the time she's able to be conscientious and of things and understand things and start to piece memories together. If she's always
had fitness undertones, and healthy choices with food, that stuff is such a big important thing in my parenting theory. It's and I don't think we've talked a whole lot about it, like off air or on air, but it is like it's funny that you knew that, you know what I mean, like that I felt that way. But yeah, it's so important to me to make sure that as she progresses on, when she starts eating solid foods and all that stuff, that we don't go the route of, oh, it's funny to let her eat whipped cream, or it's really cool to see babies eat icing because they love it.
Yeah.
Because they'll love anything you put in their mouth that's not formula or not breast milk. When they're allowed to eat other stuff, they're going to love that too. You just have to show them that it's good. You have to introduce the right foods first. And it's so important to me because of my weight in my past. Like, I don't want her to even know about the possibility to make poor choices.
Yeah.
Now, obviously, she's going to have cake at some point. She's going to have candy at some point. But in the first few years, when Dad has a say in it, no.
Yeah.
Absolutely not. And then, like you said, that them first memories she starts to piece together, I want them to be not that, oh, man, I have to go work out today. I want it to be, she remembered Dad getting up and going to the gym in the morning, or coming home from work and going to the gym at night. And as soon as she was able to, she remembers going for hikes and walks with her dad. Like, I want her to know that stuff, because then when she gets moving on her own, she's going to want to do those things.
Yeah.
Because it's all she knows. You know, I've seen it firsthand. If you put a video game in a kid's hand at a year old, because that's what Dad does, and that's what the babies want to do what you do. So as they get older, if you're playing video games all day long and that's what they see, that's what they want. So you give them a controller that don't work. And then before you know it, they're 3 years old screaming their head off because now they know it don't work.
Yeah.
I want my kid screaming her head off because she's not outside playing. You know what I mean? Like, I want her keeping me honest. Like, hey, we don't need to be in here watching TV. Let's go outside. Let's keep me busy. You know what I mean? Like, making her work for me too. I don't know. That's just my theory on parenting, I guess.
Yeah, they're definitely going to be a product of their early environment.
Exactly.
And then, like, when you look at, like, take nutrition, like you said, when you look at nutrition, it's me personally, the healthier I eat, the less I want to eat junk food.
Exactly.
And then when I do eat junk food, it makes me feel sick sometimes. Not all the time, especially in the off season where there's a little bit more flexibility there.
Yes.
But like when I'm in like a contest prep, you know, and sometimes I'll have like a cheat meal, but a cheat meal that's prescribed where you're supposed to do it, you know,
right,
like a refeed or whatever. And sometimes, depending on food choices, it could make me sick. And so, I always say biology knows. So, like, if you're feeding your daughter when she starts onto whole foods, good, clean sources, nutritious sources, her body's going to become accustomed to that. And that's what's going to make her feel good more so than the other stuff.
Exactly. I agree. I wanted to touch on, you said earlier about value and time.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that is a cool topic that we could probably talk about for a whole episode if you wanted to, when we come back from our break, talk about that. Because I have a theory on it. It's not like a great big theory, but it's something that I always think about.
Yeah.
So
cool. So let's go to a commercial break, and then when we come back, we'll talk about that.
As listeners of the Chasing Dreams podcast, we know that you demand the highest quality at all times. If you're interested in quality, look no further than Beast Mode Baking. Beast Mode Baking aims to bring the highest quality, creative, and of course delicious baked goods to your home with nationwide shipping. All orders need to be pre-ordered to ensure they're packed fresh and shipped out to you as soon as possible. Beast Mode Baking offers a flat rate of $15 for shipping due to the size and weight of the cookies and doughs. So if you're interested in Beast Mode Baking, please contact CEO Shannon Knorr. That's at SKNORR13 on Instagram and order your delicious baked goods today, because every time you support them, you're supporting the podcast as well.
And we're back from our commercial break. So Justin, prior to the break, you said that you wanted to touch on something that I said about value in time.
Yeah, it's cool to see. We were talking, like, in my house yesterday, day before, I can't remember what day, but we were talking about, like, the minimum wage.
Yeah.
And, like, our old jobs and stuff, like, when we first started working. I can remember working for, like, my first job, I think, was $5.80 an hour. And it's hard to believe that that was exciting. You know what I mean? Like, thinking back now, like, time is so valuable. And it starts at an early age because, like, like, in my opinion, like, that's how the minimum wage thing works. Like, minimum wage is for younger people starting into the workforce. So when you're young, that minimum wage should be minimal. It doesn't need to be. You don't need to be able to sustain a family on it. You don't need $25, $30 an hour, whatever you make, as an adult supporting a family. You don't need that much money.
Mm-hmm.
You need something to go out to the movies once a week with your friends, or enough money to be able to learn how to balance a checkbook. You don't need a whole bunch. So your time is not as valuable when you're younger. But as you get older and you have real like adult responsibilities, your time becomes more valuable. And then the quality of your work has to start reflecting how much you feel you're valuable.
Yeah.
How much your value really is. And I'm not saying people are not valuable, right? But I mean, you have to be honest about what you feel like you're worth. I know so many people that are so mad because they work like entry-level jobs that are really hard, like collecting garbage. Like the guy that rides on the back of a garbage truck. That is a hard job. They're underpaid. Or police officers, or firefighters or paramedics, or military. Those are extraordinarily hard, dangerous jobs, and they're vastly underpaid. So, like, I don't understand how, like, and I don't know that anybody could ever convince me that they're not underpaid. You know what I mean? Because, like, I hate the line where they say doctors and nurses, that's what they got into it for. They knew that was coming whenever they got into the field. Yeah, they knew that was coming. They still did it. So you tell me that they still aren't valued higher than they should be paid, like what they are paid.
Mm-hmm.
I don't understand how we do that. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I don't really have any answers personally on societal views.
Yeah.
And why things are the way they are. But I can tell you this as far as the value goes, that I think most people definitely undervalue themselves.
Oh, for sure.
When you're talking to me about this, it kind of raised a recent memory in my brain of a haircut that I had probably about 2 weeks ago. I try to get my hair cut every 2 weeks. It grows really fast, and I like to keep it trim and tight. So I went to get my hair cut a couple weeks ago, and the girl I had, somehow we started talking about age, and she told me that she was 26, I believe, 25 or 26, so a couple years younger than me. And I told her, I joked around about the difference between 26 and 30. Because when I turned 30, I said, it was kind of a big to-do for me mentally. Like I had almost like a midlife crisis at 30 and stuff. And so we started talking about age. And I told her, I said, in all honesty, there is a pretty significant difference between your early 30s and your mid to late 20s. At least for me, there was where I was in that point in my life. And she asked me for some advice. She's like, what do you mean? Like, give me some things that you are learning now that would have been a little bit more valuable to you had you learned earlier.
Hold on one second here. Did you ever think at 25 or 26 that you would have somebody asking you in a couple years for advice? Like,
not about life advice, maybe about lifting, but not about life.
Right, that's what I mean. Go ahead. I thought that was cool because it's like only a couple years.
Nor would I have ever thought that I'd be in a position to be able to feel validated enough to give people, life advice or whatever you call it. So she asked me that. And the one cool thing about her was she was telling me that she seemed like a very, very giving person. So someone that, she spoke on the importance of giving back and community service and, just giving your energy to other people and all the positive things that we try to reinforce on the podcast about, servant leadership and giving back to people, all that. And it was awesome. And so we had this discussion. And then one of the things I told her that it always can be difficult to receive if you don't communicate it well or communicate it in the right context. But she did receive it well, and I think that hopefully I can say that's a testament to the way I communicated it to her. But I told her that everything comes full circle in that regard, where early on in your young adult life, like we'll say teenage years and young adult life, you're very inherently selfish. Like you think about yourself, and that's just part of the nature of the beast, like of growing. Being that age. Yeah, it's part of maturation. Like you're only focused on yourself, what you want, when you want it. And you kind of have blinders on to other people involuntarily. It's not that like you're bad when you're a teenager. You just don't think of other people because you're so, myopically focused on you and what's going to be best for you right now. How are you feeling? So then I told her, as you mature, you start to see the world for what it is. You start to understand relationships. You start to understand communication. And you realize that for all intents and purposes, you're put on this earth to serve other people and to communicate with other people and try to make an impact on as many people's lives as you can. At least that's how I view it. And I know that you view it just the same because we talk about it all the time. So, and I told her that's great. I said, however, it eventually comes full circle, but there's times when you try to communicate this to people and they don't really understand it. But what happens is you get to the point where you still have that giving mentality. You still have that desire or inclination to being a servant for people. But you also have to understand that your time is valuable and you can't constantly give it away for free.
Right.
And the context that I put out there for her was me doing everything I did in my, mid-20s, and now I'm getting paid to do it instead of doing it for free. And I told her that people are going to take advantage of you, not in a malicious way. Like people don't take advantage of me.
Situationally aware.
Yeah, just, because they'll say, oh, well, would you mind writing me a diet plan? Yeah, sure, I'll write you one for free. Hey, would you mind coaching this sport for 6 months out of the year? Yeah, I'll do that. And it ends up, there's a small stipend that's attached with it, but virtually it's for free, right? So you do all these things. And I told her that you're never going to make any progress professionally or make any progress financially or even make any progress for self-worth unless you tell people that your time is valuable, and you have to understand that your time is valuable. There's no shame in charging for things that you're good at.
Right.
And if you're really good, there's no shame in charging a lot of money. You can't give all of yourself away, because then you'll have nothing left.
Right.
There has to be some semblance of professional accountability within yourself. I'm a professional, and not only if I conduct myself professionally and I act professionally, I speak professionally, I deserve to be compensated professionally.
Right.
Don't degrade yourself to thinking that you need to give, and there shouldn't be any like reciprocity there. That I just
no, I like it.
But again, when I'm having this conversation to you and I'm saying it out loud, that I can even more so sense why you need to communicate this idea well, because then you come across as, well, no, life is about giving to people, and I know that, but there has to be a point in time where you can't give any more, and there needs to be a little bit of take.
Yeah, like there's always things that you're going to be able to do, that is giving without receiving.
Yeah,
but when it's when what you're doing becomes your daily, it's because like with your situation, your training and your coaching, it consumes more time than your career path.
Yeah.
So
yeah, the things that I do outside of like
work,
let's say my career or my occupation.
Yeah, that's the word I should use.
Would be school.
Yeah.
I do more for work outside of school, time-wise, than I do in school. Right. And I'm not saying I dedicate more time to it and I don't dedicate. I just mean the hours in the days. So I'm at school for, 7 hours a day and 5 days a week. You're looking at 35 hours. And I far exceed that in training and client work throughout the week anyway.
Oh, for sure. So you have to put value on your own time personally. And I think that's what you've done, and that's once you get to the point where you understand, I can still give a piece of advice to somebody. Cool, but there's a line. There's a hard line in the sand where it goes from advice to coaching.
Yeah.
Or it goes from mentorship to them depending on everything that Charlie has to say or Justin has to say or XYZ.
Dude, I never thought about it that way, but when you said there's a fine line between advice and coaching, that's where I struggled, because I always wanted to give more advice. So I blended the two a little bit too closely, to where like giving someone some nutritional advice because they asked me a question turned into me writing a diet for them.
Because it's almost easier for you to explain it when it's the whole thing.
Yeah.
It's hard to explain the free copy. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? Like, it's hard I can imagine, because I've given some diet advice to people, and it's hard for me to explain the importance of drinking a gallon of water a day.
Well, it's really hard when you want the person to be successful.
Yeah.
Well, because you keep wanting to provide more and more context and more annotation when you say something. So I could say, they're like, well, what do you do? So, okay, I have a drink that I drink during my workout. And people ask, what are you drinking? And I explain the different supplements that are in there. And then I'm like, wait a minute. If I tell them this, they might go do this. But this is not appropriate for them. So I explain why I do what I do. Right. And then maybe it turns into, well, maybe someone in your scenario should do this. But what you're drinking in your workout really depends on what your pre-workout meal is and your post-work. And then it becomes like this long discussion where it's like, dude, it's better off just me being in control of everything and telling you what to do.
Exactly.
So I never thought about that the line between advice versus coaching, but I crossed that line and didn't realize that I crossed that line a long time ago. Right. And then for me, at least in the things that I do, I feel like ever since I've been, holding myself in higher value for my time, I've been able to help more people, because a lot of the money I earn goes back into the things that I want to do.
Right.
Whether it's purchase, stuff for trainings, or be able to, buy a Okay, for example, this weekend I'm meeting with my web developer for my website, which I'm obviously paying him a lot of money to do that for me. But that's going to help my clients more because it's going to give people future clients like a user-friendly platform for them to use.
Right.
So I feel like, again, coming full circle, even if you do make a lot of money for something that you're good at, that's not necessarily shouldn't be looked at as taking, even if you deserve it. Because a lot of times it ends up being giving anyway, because a lot of that money is being funneled back into whatever it is that you got the money from.
Exactly. I just, that was my thought, was when and like how we evolve through our youth into our early adolescence and then into our early adult, like teenage years, and then on to your early adulthood through your mid 30s, because that we're only into our early 30s, so like we don't know how much farther we progress, right? But to this point, it's crazy to think how we can place that value, and it's we as adults, you can understand the sliding scale.
What it makes you wonder with everything, not just this particular topic, but with everything, where we'll be in 5 years mentally.
Yeah.
Because like you said, hey, at 25, 26, did you ever think that you'd, have all this life advice to give, or being asked for life advice from people, just random people that are cutting your hair?
Yeah.
And I don't, and I said no.
No, me neither.
And it makes me wonder where I'll be in 5 years.
Yeah.
At least from like the mentality side of things.
Yeah.
Like I would hope that I will only get stronger mentally. I get more knowledgeable and get better at everything that I'm doing. Like basically figuring life out a little bit better.
I know I'm not going to get worse at it.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
And if I continue progressive overload in my lifestyle, I will progressively get better.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I think that's really one of the big takeaways from the episode, if not the biggest takeaway, because the first part of the episode was really us talking about ourselves. But something that can be applicable for people is, have a high value of yourself.
Yeah. Yes. Like, understand net worth. It doesn't always mean the dollars in your bank account and how much money you have. You got to have value on who you are. Like, I say that all the time, where I tell people that they're worth it. That was a thing that started when I first, when I lost like 150 pounds, and I don't know if it was a switch that flipped in my head or what, but I told somebody, you're worth it. And then I went home and I thought about that phrase, telling that person, hey, you're worth it.
Yeah.
And I can't remember who it was, but it was a really important conversation. And it will come to me as soon as we hit stop. It's going to come to me. But I started telling people, and I posted a lot about it on social media, where it would just be, you're worth it. Remember that you're worth it. Know your self-worth. It wasn't until recently that I started to understand my own self-worth.
Yeah.
And that's okay, because it comes when it comes. But once you recognize how much you're worth it, these journeys and all these things that you do become so much easier. Mm-hmm. It becomes so much easier to get out of bed every day and go to the gym or go to work when you realize what you're doing, or staying up all night because with your newborn.
Yeah.
And then going and doing those things, because you realize that you're worth it, and you're worth not giving up your normal routine, your normal diet, your normal because of an outside circumstance, because of something new.
Yeah.
You're worth more than that. Like, you can sleep through, you can reset and catch up, get a good night's sleep, and get right back at it. That's how I've been looking at it. Like, because you asked earlier about, like, with the baby, how do you navigate like the roadblocks? It's that roadblock, like staying up 3 nights ago, where I stayed up for 4 straight days. I worked out, went to fires, fathered, cleaned, cooked, went grocery shopping. It was 4 days. I didn't sleep. I think maybe 2 or 3 hours in 4 days. I got a good night's sleep, reset.
Yep.
I'm not dwelling on that 4 days. I don't care.
For me, I think the important "you're worth it" type of scenario is again, not just with dollars. And I know that financially that's what we kind of spoke about. But it's more than that. For me, value in the sense of what we're talking about boils down to me being able to not worry about my perception and sacrificing my value because of it.
Right.
So, like my time, I would never cut people off or say I have to do this or I have to do that or I don't have time for this conversation right now because I have other obligations, or I didn't put a high value on that because the perception would be bad.
Right.
If someone wants to talk to me for 3 hours and I don't have time, well, I'm going to make 3 hours. Whereas now, this is my standard. This is what I got to do.
Yeah, I have a schedule.
Yeah.
And my time is worth the same as your time is.
And people are always respectful of that.
Yep.
It's like we've said on a couple different episodes, but one in particular sticks out in my head was we had an episode on if you show that something's important to you, other people will understand that. They'll understand its importance to you, and they get in line. That's a good word for it.
And if they don't, like we said, I'm pretty sure we said, and if they don't evaluate their not their worth, because their worth is theirs, but evaluate their worth in your situation.
Absolutely.
So if you have a gym partner or anything like that is taking up too much real estate, maybe they're not in their right place.
Yeah. Maybe the place that they're at isn't right for you.
Right, and that's okay.
Yeah.
As long as everybody involved understands, like, it's okay.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. That's just I like the direction that we went here at the end here because it just makes sense.
Yeah.
To talk about worth in a practical manner.
And I think that it's applicable for people.
Yeah.
Like that's the thing is we don't want to come on the podcast and not provide any advice.
Right.
Or give any insights, or even I don't even want to call it advice because sometimes I feel like there's certain topics that we don't have advice to give. Exactly. We're just kind of spitballing between us.
Back and forth what we think.
Maybe we can generate some thought.
Exactly.
Or spark a different thought process or pattern for someone who goes and has a discussion with someone else and then kind of evolves from there, I think.
Yes, absolutely. And I feel like this self-worth and the understanding of worth in general is going to be a topic of conversation more and more, just because we're maturing and we're growing, and especially for me, I'm understanding my worth more and more every day.
Yeah,
and it's different. The knowledge that you see when you hear somebody say certain things after you understand how much you're worth it, you're like, I let that go on for how long?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, and it's not that I have any control over what they say. I just have control over my presence in the conversation.
Yeah. It's very true. I like it.
But yeah.
Well, I think that's a good place to end it. I feel like we had a pretty productive conversation. We wake up early, we do this podcast, and I feel like it always sets a good tone when I'm able to have like a very thought-provoking discussion with someone, because it makes me hypercritical of self-analysis. Like, I look at myself after these conversations and say, am I living by the words that I'm preaching? Am I doing the things that I say that other people should do on this podcast? Right. Justin brought up a good point. Maybe I should start to do that, or whatever it is.
Right.
And it's not even 6 a.m.
Yeah.
When I have these things, it really sets the tone for the day.
I agree. I'm going to go for a sunrise hike this morning. I haven't done that in a long time. Not since deer season anyways.
Sounds awesome,
so
man.
It's going to be fun.
Enjoy. So with that, we have come to the end of another episode of the Chasing Dreams podcast with Charlie and Justin. This has been episode 71. Hopefully we provided some good insights for you guys, and we hope to hear back from you next week.
Unbreakable, unstoppable, I'm pushed to the edge and